Well, hey there, it's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol. That's wavetables.lol, home of KRC Mathwaves, the world's largest collection of wavetables, single-cycle waveforms, and even some samples for all sorts of modern synthesizers, including our friend Korg Multipoly, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, and also Arturia LoFi, which I'm working on a patch library and wavetable collection for. And I'm thinking about modulation. And the reason I'm thinking about modulation is two things. So this last Saturday, I was in the chat for Plugin Guru's Saturday live stream, which I think happens around noon Pacific time. Maybe it starts at 11:30. Go check out Plugin Guru video. That's John Skipialemcool, the guy behind Unify, which we're actually hosting our plugins in Unify today, drink time. And I got into a side conversation in the chat with a fellow Unify user. What is their name? I'm going to tag you in this. I'm going to tag you, Rob ST247. I got into a side chat with Rob, who was having some problems with modulation in Multipoly Native. And so I told him, hey, follow my channel and I will do a video showing what I see for modulation, and hopefully this will solve their problems. But then also, YouTube served up to me a most hilarious video that I don't ever think I've seen before. It was this one. So this is Steve Porcaro.
Okay, let's get into a little programming now.
This is Steve Porcaro of Toto fame. Great session keyboardist and synthesizer programmer, who, you know, like did the DX7 sequencer line on Toto's big hit Africa, that also has a very classic synth brass patch in it, which may come from some sort of Oberheim. But this video, which is actually a great video about synthesizer programming and has some like wonderful tips from I assume this has got to be the late 80s or early 90s, based on the equipment. I didn't see a copyright date in the rip of the whole file, but we'll get there. But while it's actually interesting, and Steve shares a whole bunch of cool tips in this video that turns out to be called Starlicks, he is coked out of his mind. And he's got all these...
For some reason, you'll see how that just gets a sound and does
just
things
check it
that
out for a
nothing else
second.
can do for me. Also, I'll be using my TX816 racks, which essentially are a DX7, rather 8 DX7s, all the way they speak to each other and communicate to each other. When you get into a system with multiple MIDI devices, you really have to have a way of organizing all that information.
The TX816,
and the way I do that is with this MIDI box here. I use a psychological MIDI box.
So anyway, there's a lot of cool
to check out what I want my next part to be, because I'll just be improvising this.
Okay.
So let's see what happens
groove. I mean, he's playing just fine and everything, but his level of enthusiasm
it doesn't cut it. Sometimes changing the bass note's fine, but harmonically you have to look at what else.
It's you know, that enthusiasm level is definitely fueled by white powder. Anyway, it's really hilarious, and so I was like, well, we're gonna do a video called Dare to Keep Modulating Your Synths, because drugs are bad, kids, and you know. Don't ask me how I know that he's completely coked out of his mind, okay? I just know. I'm from the 80s, I know. So anyway, okay, so we're going to talk about some modulation. And one of the cool things, I think, that Steve Porcaro demonstrates in these videos, there'll be links in the description. There's always links in the description to these, which they're worth watching just on multiple levels. Is he demonstrates some of his brass patch modulation techniques. Talks about a vibrato and some very interesting key tracking stuff. Like nothing I'd, never experimented with before or never thought of before. But it's always good to have a reminder. So with that, as usual, I'm going to take a short break and, I don't know, maybe do a big fat line, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk about modulation in modern software synthesizers.
Action here. Let's modulate the frequency of our oscillator.
Yeah.
With an LFO.
Yeah.
Okay? There you go. Let's slow that down a bit. There's our amount control. Okay, now what I want to talk about here is scaling a little bit. Scaling and tracking. What you want to do is, to get the most mileage out of your string sounds, and this goes for a lot of instrumental sounds, you want to have the certain aspects of the sound that are going on tracking with the keyboard.
Yeah.
Being that a sound changes from low to high as far as its range goes. Violins, you find, you want your vibrato, you don't mind your vibrato being so fast and less intense. We're down low for basses and everything, and cellos, you want your vibrato slower.
Right.
And to get the most mileage out of one sound is desirable, to say the least.
Yes.
We do this by having things like LFOs.
It is desirable, to say the least.
Filters track with the keyboard.
Yeah.
Let me show you what I mean.
Yeah, so we'll get into showing what he means. And at this point, you're probably like, you know, Keith, Steve doesn't really seem that different from you. But I'm not coked out. This is just talky synthesizer content. But here it is. This video is like, or is it this video? Anyway, this is the original talky synthesizer content. It's fantastic. So like and subscribe for more talky synthesizer content. You know, we're almost up to 1,700, I think. I have to check my stats. Oh, we're almost up to 1,800 subscribers on this channel. So like and subscribe, please. Now, okay. What Steve's saying there is he uses a lot of key tracking and to like change LFO rates and stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's a thing I do too, but a great tip and fun. But first, let's cover modulation in Korg multi-poly for Rob ST247. I don't care if you see my notes. You know that I won't get to anything that's in the notes. Maybe I will. So I got into this conversation in Skippy's chat last week where someone was saying that they couldn't add modulations to anything. So what I've got here, actually I'm going to solo this. I'm in Unify right now. I'm going to mute my my Pure LoFi layer, and we're just going to go to this Korg multi-poly patch that's huge. This is a 4-layer, 4-oscillator per layer patch with unison and different saw-type wavetables in every single oscillator. Just to talk about it for a second, you'll see that it's using a huge amount of CPU of the core that it's running on. Like this is the biggest you can make a patch in Korg multi-poly. But anyway, somebody was saying, let's get filter A open here, that they couldn't create new modulations. And so I just, in case like their install is busted or something, here's what you should see. So we've got a patch loaded. It does not matter if it's my own patch or if it's a factory patch. You are able to modulate it. Like one thing they were concerned about is like in the librarian, you know, they do see that certain patches are I don't have the lock icon here. That certain performances are locked, and that just means that if there's a lock icon, it just means it's a factory patch and can't be deleted. But you can edit them and save them as your own. Here I'm editing one of my own patches and will maybe save it as my own. Actually, I did because I made some changes. But let's go to like filter cutoff on this layer, and let's solo this layer so we can actually just hear this. All right, so we're on layer A. It's soloed now. And here's filter cutoff on layer A. Right? If I want to modulate filter cutoff with something that's not already modulating it, for example, I could take the amp envelope, the amp LFO, I can drag it onto cutoff, and now you'll see over in the modulation pane over here, that's always visible in edit mode, I've got amp LFO to filter cutoff. And now if I turn this up, that filter is going to modulate up, or I could turn it down, and it'll modulate in the other direction. And then if I click this little minus button, it's going to remove that modulation. If I want to add a new modulation in another way, I can actually just click this plus icon, and now here is the source for the modulation, and then here is a scaling for the modulation. So let's say that I wanted to do that same thing, and I want to take amp LFO and drive filter cutoff. I can just go here, and I can go generators, and I'll select the amp LFO this way, and now there's my new modulation. I don't know, Rob, what you were running into. There are some parameters that are like not modulatable. So like, for example, the modifiers on a wavetable are not modulatable. Like let's do skip plus clip for this guy. These kind of like one-shot unmodulatable parameters, and there's very few of them in Korg multipoly. They actually have to recompute the wavetable to do their effect, and so they're not modulatable. And it'll say cannot modulate this parameter over in the modulation panel. So it tells you that you can't. So there'll be no plus sign. But for example, if we wanted to modulate this guy's tune, if I click his tune button, then I can go plus, and I could, modulate with anything that I've got. So for example, like, I don't know, I could select a controller, we could put it on mod wheel, and it's like modulate the fine tune pitch way up. That's actually kind of a cool modulation in itself. Aren't synthesizers fun? So anyway, that's how modulation works in Korg multipoly native. Now, if you don't see the same things I'm seeing, like, you either need to reinstall or update or something, because that should work. And I'm not using the standalone, I am using the host. So, this is how it would appear in your DAW. This is also how it would appear in standalone mode. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Anyway, one reason that I wanted to do this video, I think I'm going to delete this layer for now. Let's, how do I get rid of this layer? Actually, how do you get rid of a layer in Unify? Do you right click it? What do you do here? Operations. I think I want to delete it, right? I'm still getting no Unify 2. How do you delete a layer? What has happened? Oh, it must be here. There it is. Let's see. Copy, save, duplicate, delete. Bye. Okay. Let's see. Let's unmute Pure LoFi. Bum 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 bum. Cocaine. Now, I wanted to work with Pure LoFi today because I am trying to build a library of patches for Pure LoFi. And so one thing I thought might be fun is let's visit Steve's tip about making brass patches, and maybe let's just do one from scratch based on some of the wavetables that are going to be in my Pure LoFi pack. And so we're going to do that in a second. Let's take a moment to refresh our beverage or drug of choice, and then we will talk about some interesting modulation techniques. I also want to talk about what synthesis is, and also synthesis as a folk art, because those are both things that are kind of touched on in the Steve Porcaro video. And even though that's from maybe the very early 90s, things haven't changed much, and I think it's interesting to talk about. So we'll do more modulation in our next segment. Something like that, right? Let's try to make an Africa, like by Toto, brass, shall we? That would be fun, I think, to do in Pure LoFi. I have just created an empty preset, a new preset. This is the default. which is a pleasant sound in itself. It's kind of silly. Using the realistic instrument, upright piano, and lo-fi oscillator B3V organ. It already sounds very lo-fi somehow. Maybe there's always kind of lo-fi stuff, even when they're in clean mode. Anyway, what I want to do is let's make a synthy patch. I think Steve in his video, which I gotta stress, go watch it, was using a pulse wave and maybe a sawtooth. And so I'm going to do a little preview here, and let's change this to the lo-fi oscillator as well. And let's go look at, let's see, some of the stuff that's going to ship with my pack for Arturia Pure LoFi are about 1,400 wavetables from KRC Mathwaves, which that entire collection is about 160,000 plus wavetables. But I'm including the entirety of KRC Math Volume 4 because it has some pretty cool, there's some cool, like just kind of pure synthesis sort of wavetables. So like there's this exponential saws wavetable. So it's a sawtooth wave. We're getting there. But as you move up the wavetable, and in Pure LoFi, that's the same thing as the timbre knob, we get like other kind of types of sawtooth waves, like with an increasingly exponential ramp. There's also a version that's logarithmic. Maybe we should look at that. Well, I got interrupted there. What I was saying is that, oh, poppy. I'm a little poppy. I moved my lav mic. What I was saying is that this Pure LoFi pack is going to ship with the complete collection of KRC Math Volume 4 that has like really interesting variations on the sawtooth wave in it, including logarithmic, polygonal, curve, and there's my log saws. Oh. I kind of like that one, actually. I don't know if those are the chords to Africa. I'm not in Toto. Anyway, let's use that. So we've got one lo-fi oscillator with the oh, actually, this is microwave. No wonder that looks weird. I want a different one. I talked about those in my... There we go. Let's listen to this guy. That's an interesting variation on the sawtooth. I think I want a curve that's about like this. All right, let's do that. And then let's go put let's use a pulse wave over here. There should be a PWM wavetable. Also in, geez, Louise, also in KRC Math Volume 4. Let's go get Pulse PWM. Let's see, Pulse PWM 1. Does that get narrow enough for me? Yeah. That sounds pretty nice. All right. Now, what is it? What the hell am I trying to do? Oh, we're trying to do a Steve Porcaro style Africa brass patch. So what I'm going to do here is let's offset the detuning of these guys. I'm going to pick 7 cents because that's kind of my favorite detuning for a saw brass patch like this. Ooh, nice and rich. You see what that does? All right. And then the trick that Steve is talking about in his coked out video is that he will modulate the pitch of one of the oscillators to get more of a brass timbre going. And that's a tip that we've seen before, like in my video in praise of the Casio CZ101 and its manuals. I also want to go to advanced mode here. Let's go to advanced mode to show all of our interface for Arturia Pure LoFi. I think I want to change this. Let's see. Can we drag this interface out a little bit? Why are you going to make me scroll? There we go. I think I want the not the cutoff, but I think I want the release on the amp envelope a little lower. Yeah. And then actually, let's make sure there's a little attack here. All right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to further modulate pan up with another envelope. Let's actually pick our auxiliary envelope here. And I'm going to make it, I could do an instant on, but I feel like it should be a little bit curved. And then we're going to have it drop to 0. Very, very fast. Let's see. We've got our decay is 11 milliseconds. We'll put our release about the same. You won't hear anything there. And then we're going to modulate the fine tune of our pulse wave a little bit up. Let's see, that's a lot up. And, oh, hear that? Now, that's a little bit effecty, right? Let's turn that down a bit. Now, our modulation is too high. So, like another thing that Coked Out Steve mentions is that he actually likes to start with a high modulation amount and then pare it back. So, you see that I turned this fine-tune modulation from the envelope, which is down here, like way up. But I can scale it down now until I get something that's like maybe barely there. There we go. It's maybe still a little too high. And actually, one thing I could do here, let's turn it back up a little bit. You'll note that this auxiliary envelope has a scale parameter on it, so I can turn it like off. See? And I could modulate it up. Again, we're modulating things. Like, I can set the lowest scale for it that I want. And then I could modulate that scale up with velocity. So where is our velocity? Here's our velocity. If I drag that over to scale, now the harder I hit, that's kind of a, now we're getting into that. We're getting into that 80s brass kind of thing. I might want a little more attack on that, and I'll change the curve here to be more and more. I'm playing quietly. Let's see. Let's go back to main. Let's up our velocity a little bit, because I feel like this is something they would do. Same thing with the filter. I want to reduce the filter a bit. We'll also give that a little decay. 713 milliseconds. Seems a little high. A little more resonance in the filter, maybe. I am not playing the right chords, I know that. Quit bothering me. So there's that blip. So he talks about this blip. You want a blip at the beginning of a brass patch. And so that is a very common sort of 80s trope modulation that you would do. And so again, what we're doing is we've got fine tune being modulated by kind of an auxiliary envelope. We could have picked the filter envelope, but if we want them to be independent, we would do it the way that I did it here. And that's very much like what you might do on an Oberheim expander. So the other thing that we might want to do is we might want some like motion in this voice. And so another thing that Steve is advocating for in his delightfully retro unhinged video is that he will use key tracking to change things. So what we might do here is, since we've got on the timbre knob, we can do PWM, right? Because this is a pulse PWM wavetable. Instead, I can move that a little bit. I could give some motion to this sound by maybe setting the timbre knob here. Again, the timbre knob is essentially our position parameter in the wavetable in Arturia Pure LoFi. And I can modulate that like with an LFO if I want to. Let me grab this function generator. And so the function is the same thing as a, let's see, I don't want this to be synced. And I want this to be bipolar. So I'm going to make a bipolar LFO. And why is it apparently synced? Oh, there we go. Let's just do it in hertz. Okay. Now, let's drag this onto our timbre knob on Lo-Fi Oscillator 2. Ooh, that's pleasant. We're getting a nice little PWM effect. Yeah, I'm starting to like the sound of that. Maybe we'll change, maybe it's scaling a little bit too much. Okay, and so now I could change the rate of this LFO over the keyboard. So that like on a lower note, we're going to hear like a slower PWM, and then on a higher note, I would maybe be hearing a faster PWM. Let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'll modulate the rate of this function generator with key tracking. So I'm just going to go over here to key track. I will drag this onto rate, and actually that might be a pleasant amount. Now this could probably sound a little bit bigger. I mean, we've got like a lot of cool, can we just change this back up? Yeah, I want to change that fine tune up a little bit more. That's nice and rich. And you hear when I slam it, I get that little pew, pew, pew. That's the blip that Porcaro talks about. Now, that's not like a realistic brass sound, but it's a synth brass sound. Nice. Let's see. What else do I want to do with this guy? I've got this varying. I've got the varying rate up and down the keyboard. I don't think he talks about this in his video, but I would really like to change the pan position of the oscillators based on the keyboard to kind of widen things out. So let's see, where is that? Where the hell is the pan parameter in Pure LoFi? You know, I'm partly doing this particular video just to kind of get myself back in the Pure LoFi design mode because I need to do a bunch of patches for our, oh, here's pan. Pan is per oscillator, which is nice. Okay, so we're going to give this a little bit of pan spread. I'm going to set oscillator 1, which is my sawtooth, to -15, and I'll do our PWM waveform to like plus 15. So they're just a little spread out, but of course they're not going to move. Oops. They're not going to move across the keyboard. Boy, I'm having trouble getting the exact value I want. Come on. Give me 15. Boy, I know I look really intense. You know, it's fine if it's like, there it is, 15. Okay. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of spread. Just a little bit of pan spread gives you more richness. And then let's modulate the pan position with keyboard tracking, right? So we'll take key track and let's drag it. Let's do oscillator 1 first. I want the key track to go to the left. Oops, that's velocity. Double click, go away. I didn't mean to grab it. Here's key track. Key track to pan on os 1. Let's set it to be like, you know, maybe another negative 15. Let's see. Oh, it's like a decimal value. Okay, let's try it like there, like, yeah, minus 20-ish. Okay, so now as I'm going up the keyboard, that one is moving to the left. You can barely see it here. It's very hard to see this indicator. I wonder if I probably want it the other way. We'll go the other way so that as we go down, yeah, we're going very far to the left. And then let's mimic that same thing. So this is about 0.28. We'll grab key track here. It would be nice if you had copy in Arturia Pure LoFi, but you really don't. At least I don't think you do. Key track 0.28. Key track 0.25. Close enough for jazz. It's okay to have those different. Nice. Now we've got this nice stereo spread that tracks the keyboard. Very, very cool. And then also that pulse wave modulation speed is changing. I think that I think Coke.Steve would also want us to maybe put a little pitch modulation on one of these oscillators. And instead of the PWM oscillator, I'm going to pick the log saws oscillator. And so let's, you know, we can reuse this function generator because this is changing speed by the keyboard. That's fine. We will just drop that under a fine tune. And we're going to set this very small. Let's set this to like, yeah, sure, like 0.0. That's a little too low. Nice. Is that maybe a little too bright? Maybe it's too bright. We could turn the filter cutoff down. There we go. And turn our envelope amount up. That kind of bothers me in the init patch on Pure LoFi, because really the filter envelope was not modulating cutoff before. That is sweet and gnarly, right? Let's turn up. I think Golden Age is a good lo-fi setting for this. We'll just turn our lo-fi amount up here. Instant character. Love that. Don't play jump. Now it's a little exaggerated, right? But that's definitely an 80s style vintage brass pad. Maybe a 24 dB filter. A little tighter. And maybe instead of the clean filter, I'll go with the, let's see, where do I change that? Here, let's go with the analog style filter. Maybe at 20. Oh, it doesn't do 24 in analog mode. Okay. Oh, that's a better sound though. So you see how those tiny modulations like take a sound from where it was not very rich to like incredibly rich and evocative of a vintage synth patch. Now we've got no effects on this. You know, we're in 80s territory here, so we should probably turn on our effects. We could give ourselves a chorus here. Do, 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 do. Oh, Juno 6 chorus is kind of nice. Let's see. I mean, we could adjust that ourselves, but what if it's... Oh, what about a lo-fi chorus? I don't like that. Let's do... Ooh, intense? That's pretty nice. Maybe make it a little drier. And then I'm going to go to my last effect position. Come on, turn on. And let's get a reverb. Now, the Arturia Pure LoFi... Yeah, the Arturia Pure LoFi reverb is not super characterful, but it does the job. We'll select like a hall preset. I do like how that's like nicely in the background, right? That's okay. Now, one thing we don't have going on is if I move the mod wheel, and you can't see me moving my mod wheel, but we've got no vibrato on the mod wheel. It would be traditional for us in the 80s to add some vibrato. And so there's a dedicated vibrato parameter in Arturia Pure LoFi. You know, again, I hope you get what I'm doing here. I'm using a synth that I'm moderately familiar with and just applying like basic patching and modulation techniques to it, right? And I am, as I go, just using the facilities that I have to hand. So one of the cool things about Arturia LoFi is that there is this expression section, and it's got a built-in vibrato, so I can bring vibrato up manually if I want to. And you hear that. Now we're kind of in Prince territory, right? But what I want is I want vibrato to be at 0, and I want it controlled by the mod wheel. And so, you know, per Steve's suggestion, let's drag the mod wheel onto vibrato. I don't think I did it right. Come on, I want it on the percentage. There we go. And so now let's turn this way up. Let's follow his advice. And see now, vibrato goes to 100% as I move the mod wheel up. And 5 Hertz is okay. Maybe I want it... Actually, I'm going to slow the vibrato down, okay? Because the other trick we're going to do... You remember that Cook.Steve was like, you know, as things play higher, the vibrato increases. And this is true. This is a thing that humans do. So, like, if you're playing a pitched string instrument, whether this is a guitar or, you know, a violin... higher notes are going to have faster vibrato. And in fact, as you do more vibrato, the speed increases. So the idea here is that we might want to increase our vibrato speed both with key tracking and with the mod wheel. So let's do the mod wheel first. I'm just going to drag the mod wheel onto the vibrato speed. And how fast does it get? That's too fast. So again, we'll start with the high modulation and bring it back, right? Very gentle here. But you'll hear... as I bring the modulation wheel intensity up, not only does the depth increase, but the vibrato speed increases, and we can see it in the little indicator down here. I'm going to be like Steve and take a drink. Now, I know he wasn't drinking in the video. Now that's kind of a nice effect, but I'm going to drag my core, like my baseline vibrato speed down. All right, so now I've got depth and vibrato rate on the mod wheel, and let's also follow that advice to use key tracking to increase our vibrato speed. And I'm going to want this very small. And why did it make these both hot pink? Like that's pretty dumb because I can't tell them apart, but this is key track, and I'm going to change this just a little bit. So up at high notes, let's go really high. Ouch! And let's see, it should go down here. Yeah, it just increases as I go up the keyboard, so I might need to pare this back just a little bit. I'm going to leave my mod wheel up pretty high. Can you hear that? I'm going to hold a low note. We hear that that's going in pitch pretty slowly, but now I'm going to play up high. Yeah, so those are different vibrato rates depending upon the key tracking. And this is fairly extreme. I mean, there you go. So, like vary your LFO rates. And, it didn't have to be the mod wheel. It didn't have to be the direction I was doing it. But we've just gotten some really nice change over the keyboard. And that's what makes a really rich synthesizer patch. I guess another thing that I wanted to talk about that the Porcaro video reminded me about is that I've never on this channel talked about, like, what is synthesis anyway? Like, what is sound design? So I personally think about synthesis as the art and science of sub-musical sound. When we are doing synthesizer programming, building a synth patch, or doing sound design, what we're doing is we're thinking about what a sound does over the course of a note. And so while you can build crazy patches, right, on a modular system or in plenty of advanced modern synthesizers, things that are in fact musical, that are entire musical sequences, when we're thinking about the voicing of a patch, what I'm thinking about is the course of the change in the timbre, the amplitude, and the pitch of the note over a musical note, whether that's a 16th note or an entire bar, a whole note, right? I'm thinking about how that changes and like how we can make that dynamic and how we can make that dynamic with the players playing, even if the player is a really bad player like myself. And a patch like this that has these kind of modulations is really fun to play because it's rewarding and you hear the changes and you hear what's happening as you play with different velocities and play in different areas on the keyboard, even if it's just subliminally. And that's what makes a synthesizer patch great. Now, what makes a synthesizer patch great does change over time. And so this is a very 80s style, like rich analog brass sort of sound. Other styles would not have a patch like that in it. Like, you'll hear patches like this in EDM and pop, but you wouldn't necessarily hear them in like bro step, right? You wouldn't hear them in what I like to call wub step, right? It's a whole different set of tropes. But what we're doing when we're programming a synthesizer is we're thinking about that. We're thinking about like, how do I capture this sound? And like I just kind of glossed over, there are three core elements to that, right? There's the timbre, that is the harmonic content of the sound and how it changes over the course of the note. There's the amplitude, that is the loudness of the sound as it changes over the course of the note. And then the pitch of the individual oscillators as they change over the course of the note. And so that's kind of where we started, right? We started with, let's do a blip. So there's a womp, womp, womp. That's kind of brassy, right? It's still kind of exaggerated, don't you think? I do. You know, this envelope maybe doesn't decay fast enough. Maybe this is more like, I don't know, 100 milliseconds? I mean, it's still pretty bold in terms of its magnitude, but, you know, we're trying to let you hear it. It's still kind of a cool sound. Okay, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Like and subscribe for more talky synthesizer content. This has been fun. I've actually enjoyed building this patch with you, and I'm going to save it before I forget. Because we're gonna make this part of our patch collection, and I'm gonna work on it more. It's not perfect. It's not done yet, but it's a pretty good one. Let's call this Steve's coked dash out brass. You're welcome, Steve. I'll set all those characteristics later. Steve Porcaro Toto-style Africa brass. Coolio. All right. Well, now that I've got that saved, I mean, that's sounding pretty good, right? If we just like popped in at that point, you'd be like, hey, how'd you get there? Of course, there's other things. There's other things we could do, but I think I'm going to leave this with like the clean oscillators and just a little bit of the lo-fi amount, because I like the sound of it. And let's just hit save again. Save. All right. I'm going to take a short break, and then maybe I'll be back and we'll do more modulation. I hope you learned something there. I hope that made you think. We will talk about, I want to talk about synthesizer programming a little more meta conversation about synth programming in our next segment. So I'll be right back. I'm back. Did you miss me? Well, no, because that happened instantaneously. I'm fairly happy with this patch. But there is, there's another thing we could do. We could randomize things a bit more. And I kind of want to do like the voice modulator. So this is going to, I'll just randomize the, like that. I don't know, like that. That's a nice shape. I like this random shape. Let's do bipolar. Yeah, cycle. Oh, maybe random. Let's randomize this per voice. So what this is going to do is this is going to create a modulator that generates a random value for like every different voice, and they're going to be like randomly selected. And I think what I want to do is just change the fine tuning of each oscillator based on this. So it's going to be a little more like an analog synth. So let's actually drag this to the fine tune on our second oscillator. Let's just make it real small, like 0.11, sure. And then let's see, over here, the fine tune here. Let's go the opposite direction, minus 0.11-ish. How do you get exact values in Arturia Pure LoFi? I'm not really sure. Okay, that's a little too much, right? Like now we've got like, that sounds like our analog synth is way out of calibration, but I don't know. It's a pawn shop synth, I guess. It's not bad. but it's a little extreme. So let's change the scaling on that a bit. So if you got scale down here, should probably make that about, maybe even just like 30%, right? Again, Steve suggests in his videos, start with like large modulations and then scale them back to where they sound good. Now that is just the tiny modulation we were looking for, I think. I like it. With vibrato up. Now, of course, real brass instruments don't so much do vibrato as they do tremolo. So, we could undo some of that and, add it to the level parameter on the oscillators rather than the pitch. But this is very pleasant now. Don't forget to hit save, Keith. Let's save our preset. And we could give like a little more oscillator drift. Like, we could change like the starting timbre of each of our oscillators, right? Like, the timbre changes quite a bit in the logarithmic saws. As we do that, so what we might want to do is we could take this voice mod and we could put it on the timbre of the log saws mod, and we'll just let it modulate more logarithmic on this kind of random basis, just to give us a little more timbral variation from note to note. That's pretty cool. We might also want to change like the starting position for the timbre, really, for our PWM oscillator. So let's just drag this to there, and maybe we'll just make it negative. So we'll make it like more pulsy if the value is higher. How does that sound? Oh, there's some sort of loud rumbling outside. I'm hoping Isotope will take that out for me, but if you hear a rumbling in the background, it's not me, it's something else. So now that's getting really interesting to my ear. Okay, so like, how do you learn these techniques? I want to play a part of this video that I thought was actually really interesting. I know I've been joking around about Steve Porcaro like being clearly coked out, and he clearly is. But he is being quite cogent in a lot of ways. And there's a point in this video that gets to something that I've been wanting to say on my channel for quite a while. Let's listen.
Well, that's gonna about wrap it up for today. In closing, I just want to say that I want to let you know that the only way I've learned anything about any of this stuff is by asking a lot of stupid questions, and by trying to keep real humble and keep your humility about you, even when you think you know it all. The only way I've gotten anywhere with this stuff is by making friends with people who knew a lot, and by offering to share with anybody and everybody I could. And keep that in mind, and until next time, good luck, and we'll see you again.
Okay, so we'll play some more of that. And I did not mean to make a reaction video. But what he's saying there is actually quite true. So, synthesis, which again, I describe as the art and science of sub-musical sound, and sound design more broadly, and I'm popping, sorry, is a folk art. So it's not a fine art. And what I mean is that there are not a lot of occasions or opportunities to learn synthesis in like an academic environment. And there is theory of synthesis and there is mathematics to synthesis, and we can learn those. That's part of the science of synthesis. It is primarily an art that is passed down through the interaction of people, So I know we're not really interacting right now, but I'm sharing some of my experience and thoughts with you, maybe about things in synthesis you've never thought of. And so, synthesis it's a folk art. It is like a verbal tradition rather than a written or academic tradition. And we learn things about synthesis through interaction with our peers. And I think that's very interesting. And that is one of the things that makes synthesis challenging, right? Is that to learn it, well, one, you have to engage with it and you have to discover some of the techniques yourself. But then you also have to engage with others who are also doing the thing so that you can learn their techniques. Because not so much is written down. So, I do like the YouTube era of synthesis and sound design because at least people are putting their thoughts out there and they are demonstrating things. And I am going to, over the next little while, try to write down more of the stuff that I'm thinking about. But, if you think about synthesis, there's not so much writing about it, right? There is, like the Sound on Sound series, Synth Secrets, is really great and like codifies a bunch of this information that is applicable over time, even as synthesizers and tastes change. There's also Curtis Rhodes' book, The Computer Music Tutorial, which tries to codify, and to cement some of the information that's been, learned about synthesis techniques over many years. It's a huge academic book that's well worth reading. It's also expensive, but it is available through Amazon. But outside of that, it's really learning synthesis is all about interacting with other synthesists, with other sound designers. Whether you're doing that in a vocational, like it's your job, or you're doing it in an avocational way as it's a hobby. And that's the way with a lot of music, right? Like, is there a lot of theory of like punk music? Is there a lot of theory of industrial music? Well, no. Like you come to it and you learn it, through exposure to the art form itself and by attempting to replicate or perform the art form itself. And so synthesis is very much like that to me. I don't know why I'm saying this to you. It's just something that I've thought about a lot over many years, and I just want to share. And so, I hope that what I did here today, and I'm definitely going to stop here. I thought I might do multiple batches, but I think this was enough. I just, wanted to share some of these ideas that Steve shared, which are also ideas that I've picked up from other places, but let's try them out. And like, this is how you learn synthesis. So like, if you're a new synth programmer, this is what you do. You like listen to other people, replicate what they did, right? And then hopefully you master it to a certain extent and share it with others. And if you've made interesting discoveries, I'd like to hear about them. Like, I know there are people on my channel who also have channels, and I'm interested in following you. If you're following me, and if I've forgotten to follow you or I've just been too lazy, just reach out in the comments. Also, like and subscribe for more talky synthesizer content. I'm going to leave it there for today. Except I think we should watch the very end of Steve's video, don't you? Because he does do some jamming. So let's go with that. Now this is a smooth yacht rock jam right here. Yeah. Does anyone have more? What? That's me. Do we know the sound? I'm in the wrong key. Wow. Oh, is he just playing the black notes? No, he's not. I think my synth is out of tune with this VHS tape, don't you? Whatever he's playing, it's very complicated. But oh boy, that was crazy. All right, have a great day. Be good to each other, and I will talk to you later.